Welcome. And as they say, I'm told in jolly old England, cheerio. There, I put it into English, proper English for you. Welcome to our global viewership of students of Ayn Rand's Objectivism. I'm Jonathan Hoenig from CapitalistPig.com, and you've landed on the Ayn Rand Center UK's Daily Objective. We come to you Monday through Friday, every day of the week, with a network of original programming influenced by Objectivism, Ayn Rand's philosophy of Objectivism, bringing you some of the biggest stars in Objectivism. And I don't even put those question stars in pull quotes. Harry Binswanger, who was an associate of Miss Rand's, has a program on this very channel. We've got people like James Valiant, who's studied with Dr. Peikoff. Dr. Peikoff himself has appeared on this channel, and we're only able to do it because of you. We are not sponsored by anyone. In fact, the Ayn Rand Center UK doesn't even garner that non-for-profit insignia in the UK. We exist solely because of your generous contributions, primarily our subscribers. So go to the webpage, AynRandCenterUK.UK, I believe, and become a monthly subscriber. It's like £10. You spend that on, I don't know, I'm told the British spend that on before an appetizer there, they have a couple of pints. So, I mean, put one of those pints towards your intellectual fulfillment and become a member, become a subscriber here on YouTube as well. That's very easy to do. It's only a couple bucks. You get access to private information, unique programming with people like James Valiant, Don Watkins, and all the rest. So support what we're doing here. And I hope to earn that support with, I think, a pretty interesting presentation for you today. The thing about Ayn Rand, as you'll often find, is people say, oh, I know Ayn Rand, just be selfish. And maybe they say that. It's usually something more like throw children, murder children or something like that. When you realize how much there is to read and understand of Ayn Rand, and very often, I remember years ago, I was put on Fox Business with someone to debate an issue about Ayn Rand. They were commenting on Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged, and at the same time admitting that they hadn't read Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged. So, I'm just making the point that we all are students of Ayn Rand. There's so much to read. Here's the letters of Ayn Rand. She came out, I don't know, at least a decade ago. Really interesting perspectives, her correspondence with individuals. Jeff Britting's awesome, very great little, almost gift book, full color, lots of interesting history about Miss Rand, Mr. Frank O'Connor and her whole history, etc. So, be a student, enjoy always learning more. There's more to learn. And today we're going to bring you right down in the dirt, if you will. We're going to talk about not politics, which I think dominates too much of the discussion of Ayn Rand, or even ethics, but the fifth branch of her philosophy, and that is aesthetics. We had such huge mega viewership with my previous program all about today's contemporary fashion. I thought I would follow that up with something about today's contemporary art scene. Now, I always want to make the disclaimer, this is not part of Objectivism. This is my own presentation. I am a student of Objectivism. We're all students here at the Ayn Rand Center UK. So we always want to refer you back to the source text, Dr. Peikoff, Miss Rand, Dr. Binswanger, to understand Objectivism and engage in our global discussion here in the Super Chat and everywhere else. So today I thought we'd talk about art. And I see so many people already kicking into the Super Chat. Allie, who is a member and a great contributor from way back, she's part of what we like to call around here the philosophy posse. We're all here to learn. Exactly, it's exactly right. And thank you for helping us do that by being a member on YouTube in our special membership section as well. You might remember this scene from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Cameron staring at Sunday in the Park on the island of Le Grand Jatte by Seurat. And for people of a certain age, it just epitomizes just that beautiful staring into and contemplating a moment in art, getting that moment of peace in art. And Rand wrote a lot about this, and this is from the Romantic Manifesto. I'll quote Miss Rand now. Since a rational man's ambition is unlimited, since his pursuit and achievement of values is a lifelong process, and the higher the values, the harder the struggle, he needs a moment, an hour, or some period of time in which he can experience the sense of his completed task, the sense of living in a universe where his values have been successfully achieved. It is like a moment of rest, a moment to gain fuel to move farther. Art gives him that fuel, the pleasure of contemplating the objectified reality of one's own sense of life is the pleasure of feeling what it would be like to live in one's ideal world. As always, it's better when you read it than I, as a struggling dyslexic, try to often read, but you get that point of really, I think what I understand Ms. Rand is trying to emphasize here, really what art gives you in this sense. It's a moment of spiritual rest and fuel to think about what would life be, as she says, in that one's ideal world. And thank you, Allie. She says she always loves listening to you. You're great. You're great. You're such a great supporter. So let's keep learning together. So think about that. I mean, so often when people say art, they say, well, hey, if I like it, it's art, or this urinal is art, or whatever you do, whatever you scrawl against a canvas is art. But Ms. Rand obviously is much more thoughtful about that, and what art provides to you as the viewer. Art gives man the fuel, the pleasure of contemplating the objectified reality of one's own sense of life, is the pleasure of feeling what it would be like to live in one's ideal world. So of course, it piqued my ears when the art world, and this has even crossed over from the art world to just be really mainstream news. A very widely anticipated piece of art was finally unveiled this week. And this was made international headlines. A mammoth artwork is born. Michael Heizer's City opens in brutal Nevada desert after 50 years. Articles from CNN, The Guardian, Las Vegas Journal Review, the New York Times. In fact, you're looking at the left there, a major cover and kind of article and profile in the New York Times. In a remote Nevada valley, the artist Michael Heizer's astonishing mega sculpture is finally revealed. And this, as I said, this wasn't just news within the art world. This was kind of crossed over, made headlines all around the world. After more than 50 years, reclusive artist Michael Heizer is finally ready to unveil City, his life's work. Here's what it looks like. So we are interested in aesthetics, and I think I'm certainly interested in art and curious about what this artist's life work in the middle of the desert has been unveiled and look like. So we'll take a look at it now and evaluate it, perhaps from some eyes outside the traditional circle. Here's the big unveiling. I mean, talk about a buildup. Headlines all over the world. Here is his life's work in the Nevada desert. And when you see the price tag for this, your jaw is going to drop even more. Yeah, it's, if you're listening on our audio feed right now, you're basically looking at a large empty sprawl of sand or gravel with a couple of concrete forms, kind of triangular forms, set in the middle of the desert out there. Chandler says it looks like the final set piece for a James Bond film. Well, it's pretty bewildering to me as well. Here's what the Smithsonian Magazine says about it. In the middle of the desert, a few hours north of Las Vegas, lies City. The site in question, with its smooth dirt mounds and massive concrete structures, is not a real city. It is the name of American artist Michael Heizer's mega sculpture. After 50 years and $40 million, $40 million, City will finally open to the public. So, it made me think of one of Miss Rand's great lines from A Virtue of Selfishness, is something, I'm quoting now, from the Romantic Manifesto, quoting now, something made by an artist is not a definition of art. A beard and a vacant stare are not the defining characteristics of an artist. So the notion that anything an artist does is art is something I think I love that Miss Rand kind of shoots down right from the get-go. And to call this thing cities, Bonnie says, wish there was an in-person next to it for scale. Bonnie, we have a few more of these photos. Don't worry. I mean, they're not, I started at the top though, in terms of, I thought was at least art, structurally is impressive. But to call this City, I mean, I love cities. I live in a city. I live next to the second tallest building in the world, certainly the Northern Hemisphere, the Willis Tower. To call this thing a city is an insult to city. That is a city. You're looking at downtown London. All that man-made mechanical glass and steel and industry and money flying around and values flying around and energy, and that is city. That's city. Here is New York. That is a city. And to call this a city is, what category is that more appropriate for? City or construction project, right? I mean, now here's a construction project. To me, it looks like, now, there is a whole backstory about Native American Indians and something about, there's a whole but we're just talking about evaluation here. To me, it looks like an unfinished construction project. Daniel says it looks like a mausoleum. It's not even particularly interesting dystopian. And when you realize how freaking inaccessible, look, I visited the Holocaust Memorial in Berlin, which is a series of concretes. It's very moving and transformative and extreme. This is, again, quoting from the Smithsonian now, Heizer began constructing city in a remote Nevada desert in 1970. At the time, not surprisingly, the young artist was the toast of downtown New York, per the New York Times. And it made me think that this is the kind of thing that probably was very fashionable in the 1970s. I mean, Miss Rand or Dr. Peikoff has talked about how Miss Rand knew what we know is the environmental movement. Miss Rand diagnosed it way back when, that's my interpretation, but as the ecology movement. I mean, early on it was called the ecology movement. And you can see how something like this would be so fashionable back in the early 1970s. Walking into the middle of really nowhere, and it's completely uninhabited now. I mean, there's no place to be within miles of where this sculpture is, or this thing is. So you can imagine this very celebrated young modern artist starting this head-scratchingly, I don't know, I can't think of a better word than just insane at this time, but project 50 years ago. He's certainly not humble. He told the New York Times, "This is a masterpiece, or close to it. Well, judge and prepare to be judged." That type of proclamation to it. Paula says, cue music. And I want to cue some super chats here as well. We've got a lot of people listening or watching all over the world. Celebrate good ideas. You're celebrating good art. We're critiquing art. Celebrate good ideas by supporting what the Ayn Rand Center UK brings to you Monday through Friday. We are the biggest producer of objectivist-related content, not just in the world, but in history. So be a part of that with $2 a day. I mean, that's probably less than you spend on coffee. So support what we do here. Now, the artist told the New York Times this is a masterpiece or close to it. Thank you, Jeff, very much. Jeff Bannister, keep it up. We're keeping it up because these are, ideas are what move the world. And these are the ideas that move in the art world and the world writ large these days. Miss Rand wrote in the Romantic Manifesto, as an example of an entire field of activity based on nothing but the argument from intimidation, I give you modern art, where in order to prove that they do possess the special insight possessed only by the mystic elite, the populace are trying to surpass one another in loud exclamations on the splendor of some bare but smudged piece of canvas. And that's what this seems like to me. I mean, for all this headlines about, oh, look at this fabulous art. This is the biggest thing. This is a masterpiece. And the populace goes along with it for no other reason than, as I said, as I think Ms. Rand said, this argument from intimidation. We're told this is culturally significant. Why? For what purpose? What does it signify? But everyone trips over themselves to kind of say, oh, well, this is so meaningful. And Allie, and thank you, Allie, who is philosophy posse, like top tier, my dear. She says, what's the point of the sculpture? Well, interestingly, Allie, part of the point is not having a point. And this is not just my estimation. Alex is making me laugh. You know, the artist himself encourages the fact that there is no point. If there was a point, you could kind of pin it down. But he celebrates the fact that there's no point. And of course, Miss Rand prophetically addressed that with some language, which we'll get to as well. So someone was asking for, Robin says, I've built a masterpiece, 10 whole triangles. Well, you know, and Robin, thank you for being a YouTube member. That goes a long way. It's like 3 or 4 or 5 pounds a month, and it really helps Razi, who keeps all this programming going, know that he can keep literally the wheels running, keep the videos being produced, keep the advertising and the in-person meetings. So thank you for that. She says, you know, I've built a masterpiece, 10 whole triangles. I'm like, no, I look at this. This is another view. You're looking at basically a bunch of dirt pyramids, I guess, kind of dirt forms. And yeah, you know, I look at that and I say, well, this took 50 years and $40 million, and think, well, Christ, you know, in this sense, the Egyptians did do it better, you know, did do it much better. You know, what, it's just, what is this? I mean, what, in fact, Allie says, is the soil made out of bronze? Well, Bonnie, I'm hoping not to give it positive press. What we're hoping to do here is basically call the wool on this whole modern art. I mean, this is what the New York Times is claiming as, you know, the most epic sculpture of our era. Now, this is a pile of dirt over on Secaucus, New Jersey by the highway. Okay, do you see a big demonstrable difference? In fact, this one to me looks a little uninspired and kind of, if I were to apply the term art to one, I'd probably say to this one, at least I see some heroicism of machines moving, of life. Ellie says, I see a giant hill I want to climb. Yeah, I mean, I guess, does it succeed as a sand dune, I suppose? I mean, but a $40 million, 50-year epic sand dune would be a failure by every measure, including the measure of art. Aesthetically, writes Kimmerman. Now, Kimmelman is one of the big proponents of Heizer's work. I believe he is on the board of the foundation now that has been set up to, you know, take care of this work and make sure it doesn't change. And aesthetically, writes Kimmelman, city can strike a visitor as first blush as a mashup of Chichen Itza and an unfinished highway interchange or an empty motocross track. And when you read that, it makes me think of Miss Rand's line again. These are all from a Romantic Manifesto, which is a great read. Take it out this summer. It's, you know, like everything Miss Rand has written, it's really not that difficult to read. It's accessible. You can get through these essays in, you know, an hour or so and really get a lot of great lines. Miss Rand writes, I don't know which is worse, to practice modern art as a colossal fraud or to do it sincerely. And when you see the attitude, I mean, that looks like an unfinished motocross parking lot of some sort. I mean, it doesn't look like much of anything to me. It looks barren, and I don't understand. This is courtesy of the Triple Aught Foundation, the monument at the site called 45 degrees, 90 degrees, 180 degrees. It looks like a parking lot to me. You know, all it's missing is the stripes. Yeah. Enric says geometry of form, swatches of color, and so forth to realize Kant's idea that we only perceive filters in the mind, not reality. That's a really interesting perspective. And thank you, Enric, for bringing it back to some of the philosophy. It's just, it's just missing the stripes, as I say it, for being a real parking lot. Jeff, thank you. And thank you, Enric. You're such a part of the top tier philosophy posse. Jeff Bannister Jeff says, because keeping the lights on in the UK has become so expensive, I appreciate Ayn Rand Center UK. Thank you, Jeff. We've been obviously covering the morality of energy, the human necessity of energy, of human flourishing, to borrow one of Alex's great lines, and why the moral arguments for energy, for man's life, and for improving your mind as well with here. So thank you for being part of that as well. So, it made me think as well, Miss Rand had some favorite, this is on the record, if you will, some favorite pieces of art. Now, I never particularly care for Salvador Dali, and I'm not going to go into my own aesthetics now. It's kind of not the place, but Dr. Peikoff, I believe, is on the record of saying this was one of Miss Rand's favorites. I mean, you can Google or listen to Dr. Peikoff as to why. This is Crucifixion by Salvador Dali. I think it's from the late 1950s. It's a modern art of her era. Learn a little bit more. There's a lot out there of why she appreciated this and she liked this painting. I remember Dr. Peikoff many times talking about him liking this sculpture, which is the Dying Slave. So that's maybe a more apples to apples. I mean, look at the sculpture of the Dying Slave by Michelangelo, and then compare it to what we just saw with the parking lot, the city by Michael Heizer. It's like not even in the same category. It's Michael Galvin, director of the Los Angeles County Museum of Art. I'm sure they don't get any government money, do you think? He says, I can only compare it to itself. It's an artwork aware of our primal impulses to build and organize space, but it incorporates our modernity, our awareness, and reflection of the subjectivity of our human experience of time and space, as well as the many histories of civilizations we have built. It's like, can somebody want to translate that? In fact, it's funny, that type of run-on, mean absolutely nothing sentence reminded me of when then President, on the campaign trail, I believe, President Trump was asked if he had read The Fountainhead, and he said, I mean, he never read it, but he said, The Fountainhead, it relates to business and beauty and life and inner emotions. That book relates to everything. Same kind of like, talk about word salad. But what is this? A section of the mega sculpture called Complex One. You are looking at it. This is, by the way, not right off the highway. This is hours and hours and hours and hours away from anything. When I look at this, I'm going to sound like a heathen now to all these highfalutin art folk. It looks like a parking lot in, like, I don't know, Santa Fe. Doesn't it? It kind of looks like an unfinished parking lot in Santa Fe. But this is really what's celebrated as the highest of high art right now. Visiting city, by the way, is not easy to do. I mean, the one thing, as I said, if the Holocaust Memorial in Berlin is fascinating. It's open to anyone. It's in the middle of downtown, and it's very immersive. But this is not like that at all. Visiting city, and I would say that is an artwork. I would say that absolutely is an artwork. This is something very different. Visiting city is an off-road proposition in more ways than one, writes ArtNet's Taylor Defoe. Heizer's masterpiece, which has been called the largest artwork in the world, contains no walkways, lookouts, or directional signals. There is no beginning, no end. It is designed to be explored on foot and by instinct. So there's no way to look at it. It's just a series of things in the middle of the desert. And to quote Miss Rand now, when the practitioners of modern art declare that they don't know what they're doing or what makes them do it, we should take their word for it and give them no further consideration. So when they create, a big line of cut, pavement or gravel or stones in the middle of the Nevada desert, the site stretches 1.5 miles long, and the fact that this is celebrated as the height of art is reflective, of course, of the philosophy behind it. And to me I wish it was malevolent or even mystical. It's nihilistic. It's doing everything it can to actually spit in the face of what art is supposed to be at all. The irony is that, I guess it's probably not ironic, but this had a lot of political pull behind it. This is quoting now from The Guardian. City found a supporter in the late US Senator Harry Reid, who was reportedly enthralled by the project and Heizer's embrace of the landscape. Reid helped to stall proposals for a railway line to carry nuclear waste to a proposed storage facility by the nearby Yucca Mountain. So a railway line was stopped so that this sculpture could be built and in fact protected. Quoting now from The Guardian, the surrounding landscape was protected by the Obama administration. The city sits within the 700,000 Basin and Range National Monument. Protecting the land, President Obama noted that Heizer's project is one of the most ambitious examples of the distinctively American land art movement. Yeah, this is, in case you're not down on your modern art parlance, this is land art. Is everyone looking at that now? This is the best we have in land art. And keep in mind, this is in the middle of nowhere. This is not just, like, I look at that, and again, I sound like a heathen here, but kind of looks like just the racetrack, just like not even Indy, just like a nice racetrack, a nice road maybe somewhere out there. I mean, it's bewildering. And I think, like so much of modern art, it's as Miss Rand said, it's like a big joke to placate with only the child saying the emperor has no clothes. This is the biggest absurdity of the whole thing. Heizer plans to offer only 6 tickets per day. 6 tickets per day. After all of this, I live next to the Art Institute of Chicago. I'm sure they get 10,000 people there through there a day, maybe more. It's full of artwork. Heizer plans to offer 6 tickets per day. It's like spitting in the face of anything that you could try to make a connection of this as artwork. This isn't artwork. It's a big joke on everyone who perpetuates it, including it's not just some obscure art. This was mainstream news all over the world. And believe me, young people look at this and say, how can I get that kind of adoration? Allie asks, how much? I mean, this is, talk about insult to injury. Tickets are $150. So if you get one of these 6 tickets to see, it's miles huge. Disneyland gets in tens and tens and tens of thousands of people. Tickets are $150. $150. Bonnie says, maybe it's better if we don't know the extent of these things. I Googled him and wish I hadn't. Well, tickets are $150. And I'll just make the point that Disney, you can get into Disney for $109 per ticket. So talk about expensive for, this is such a funny joke being perpetuated on anyone who feeds it, and it's front page news, and it's what's considered high art. Now, one of our super chatters asked, what is the point of all this? Well, Heizer said, I'm not here to tell people what it all means. You can go figure it out for yourself, which made me think of Miss Rand's line, as a recreation of reality, a work of art has to be representational. Its freedom of stylization is limited by the requirement of intelligibility. If it does not present an intelligible subject, it ceases to be art. And here you have the artist himself saying, it doesn't mean anything. You figure it doesn't mean anything, and it's certainly unintelligible. So let's take our markers out and let's scratch this out. This is not art. I'm going to reclassify this. This is a stupid experience. It's a colossal waste of money. I mean, literally just I mean, I can't actually think of a better waste of money than $40 million over the last 50 years than creating this. But to go and visit this is like an experience. It's like going to Burning Man. But, you know, at least Burning Man, you can, like, I don't know, smoke or drop acid or something, or party with women. I party with anyone. I mean, it's just seems like if you're going to go to the desert, Burning Man's probably a better, more fun experience. Even better than this insane city. Go to something that cities and industry have built. Go to a great experience like the Haunted Mansion. You know, I went to Disney as an adult a couple of years ago. In fact, I took what they have, kind of a backstage pass. You pay a couple extra bucks, you get a, you know, somewhat of an adult tour, including an amazing experience at the Haunted Mansion. And this to me is even, I mean, look at the artistry in the Haunted Mansion as against the artistry in what Michael Heizer's city is about. All these unique crafts and picture, you know, and coffins and textiles that had to be created. Now, I don't know if I would say it's art, but I think it's an artistic experience that's exciting, that's fun, that's 25 minutes from the Orlando airport and cheaper than Michael Heizer's walking around in the desert staring at piles of dirt. So go have an artistic experience like the Haunted Mansion at Disney, which even celebrates, you know, if you've ever been there, some elements of fine art too, with its fun effects. Ms. Rand said, art, including literature, is the barometer of a culture. It reflects the sum of a society's deepest philosophical values, not its professed notions and slogans, but its actual view of man and of existence. And knowing, I believe that to be true, and knowing that this is what is being celebrated now as the highest of high art, you know, it's bewildering and it's disappointing. Now, what I will take this is say, even on the level of brutalist architecture, the Norway Seed Vault did it a lot better. I mean, don't you think? If you remember this one, I don't know a lot about the Seed Vault, but this is where they keep all the seeds, every seed that's ever grown anything in the world, so that if there's ever a nuclear winter, we've got all the seeds. And to me, it's not only a more interesting piece of architecture, but there's actually a purpose to this place. It is protecting life. I mean, it's protecting seeds and doing it what looks like efficiency. And so there's something about that as a piece of concrete brutalist architecture that I've always enjoyed, that Michael Heizer's 50-year and $40 million hole in the desert is just a exact replica, or I should say exact replication of today's nihilistic, empty sense of life and modern culture. In short, hated it, but I love you. And I love you for being part of what we're doing here. The Ayn Rand Center UK, we are here Monday through Friday, and we're only able to be here because of you. You are our supporters, you know, especially our members. It's not difficult to become a member. It's literally maybe 5 or 10 pounds a month. It's really nothing. And you know, it means so much to our organization because we're a global movement. We've got Mark Pellegrino, literally a Hollywood superstar, Rucka Ali, a YouTube streaming sensation, intellectuals, people in business, people in, you know, markets. Jim Brown is a financial business expert. So, you know, we're only able to keep this momentum going because of your couple of bucks, 2 pounds at a time, 5 pounds at a time. Become a member. I want to see it. And, you know, I want to see a couple more during the show. We really need your help, especially now. So take this opportunity. If it's your first time, do it at the lowest level. 2 pounds. You know, you've probably lost that in internet poker in the time you've been listening to this program. So support what you're doing. Don't be a freeloader. You know, Rand was about value for value. So if you're getting something out of this show, throw it back at Rosie Ginsburg and the team from all over Europe that makes this happen. You know, means so much to them and means so much to me. Coming up tonight at 7 p.m. UK, it's the Fountainhead Book Club. It's open only to Ayn Rand Center UK members and YouTube members. They can watch the live stream of the discussion. The link will be in the chat. And I'm just saying, that's the kind of thing you get when you are a member the site at Ayn Rand Center UK or a member at YouTube. You know, when I first read The Fountainhead, no one even knew who Ayn Rand was, and there was a lot I missed, and a lot I think I kind of flew through and didn't get through. So to be able to read it with other friends and other interesting people and just shares, oh, did you catch this? Did you catch this? Oh, I didn't catch this. So let me fill you in. It just makes the whole experience that much more fun. So, you know, whatever you're paying for masterclass for a much better value and much more important product. So thanks for being part of what we do. We're here, as I said, Monday through Friday for the Daily Objective. I'm Jonathan Hoenig. Lorin Brown, thank you. Those $2. Thank you, Free Trade. Good show. Good show to you. And you guys are such great parts of our community. And, you know, I mean, what objectivism is about, it's, you know, I really started, I'll say this, I started enjoying it a lot more when I stopped trying to convince anyone of anything. I think there's some other folks on our sites who are much better at convincing. I just have found that objectivism really improves my life. It improves my sense of self-esteem, my perspective on the world, my enjoyment of my values, my passion for them. And part of that is my interaction with all of you on our super chat and in our communities as well. So Bonnie, thank you. Bonnie says the modern art makers seem pretty confident that there's no one left with the guts to say that the emperor is naked, sad. Thank you, Jonathan. Well, thank you, Bonnie. Thanks for being a member, and hopefully we'll see you at the Fountainhead Book Club this afternoon. Thanks, Lorin. Thank you, Free Trade. We'll see you tomorrow with the Daily Objective. Wishing you best premises and be well.